The Lord has led this church along the way. We've been able to see His hand in a lot of things that have happened, how doors have opened, and how by following Him, even though we didn't understand at times where that was leading us, that He had a great plan.
We were just looking for a Pentecostal church where we would feel comfortable and where our family would grow. And when we walked into Calvary Assembly on East 214th in Euclid, we felt that immediately. Pastor Howard Davidson was fatherly. He made us feel welcome. God was really faithful even in transition times. Eventually the time came when Pastor Davidson announced that he was going to be the Secretary-Treasurer of the Ohio District and moving on to Columbus. Now what do we do? 1966 to 1969, Bob Crabtree became the pastor at Calvary Assembly.
As Bob Crabtree, the pastor who preceded me, became a missionary, he was here about 2.5 years. And it was the fall, September of 1966, when I was given opportunity to come and try out at this church. As I got the call from Cliff Quanbig, I think, who was serving on the board at that time. He was secretary, and he said, "Pastor." He said, "You're our pastor." That's the first thing he said. And it was good news. And so we became installed, and it was a wonderful beginning.
The children's operation at 214th Street had pretty well taken over the old original church building. We were just running out of room. We needed to find some way, and we didn't have any space to add on to the building again. We already were, parking was tight, and people had to park in the post office lot next door.
Then in the providence of the Lord, a new man came into the church. His name was Roy Goss. He says, "Pastor, I hear that you want to maybe relocate, go maybe further east." I said, "Yes, I'm leaning that way, but not all of the board is in favor." Well, he said, "I heard of a piece of ground on Chardon Road in Willoughby Hills that could become available, come on the market." And my faith was being tested constantly because the challenges, unbelievable challenges, come when you begin to build. Unexpected bills begin to come in. And but we knew God had brought us this far, and we'd have a building committee meeting, board meetings, and so forth, and we'd pray together. And it's amazing how the Lord would somehow give us that faith that He'd brought us this far, and He would help us. So we kept obeying the Lord and doing what we could do, and God blessed and continued to bless.
I marvel at how God blessed Calvary over the years with lay leadership as well as pastoral leadership. Brother Davidson and later Pastor Crabtree and then later Pastor Bark were all great, but they also developed lay leaders who were strong and let them also minister in the church itself.
Well, of course, Calvary was known in those days as the productions that they would produce at Christmas time and Easter time, and the involvement of so many people in these great productions, and it was really a tremendous outreach because we'd do this 3 times in a weekend at least, and the churches would be filled. It was at that point, too, that we became interested more in the musical aspect of it. Pastor Barth had asked us to be song leader, and and we had agreed to lead worship. And my father, of course, was leading the choir at the time at various occasions. And the choir itself was really a definite part of ministry in the church.
The dream of my lifetime occurred in 1989 while we were attending church here when Pastor Barth invited me to be part of the staff. Never dreaming that 4 years later he would retire and we'd have 2 interim periods. But you know, God was just showed himself strong through those interim periods. And we first had Pastor Kranz for 22 months, and then later, of course, Pastor Welly. So God is so faithful. He kept the church on an even keel, a level, because of the quality of the people that had been developed by the pastors of the past.
When the board, all this time, the board was praying and asking God to give to us a new senior pastor. And we did our due diligence. We contacted the places where Pastor Welly had ministered in the past. And it was really kind of interesting because every person or place we contacted, they commented on the character of Pastor Welly and his ministry and his character. And of course, when he and Patricia came the first time, the board unanimously said, this is God's man for Calvary Assembly.
Well, when we arrived, Calvary Assembly was a strong, historic church, and had a deep commitment to Jesus. That was evident. The worship was sincere. The people were faithful, and there was a warm reception we received. Calvary Assembly has been blessed with tremendous facilities, and of course, over the years, many years, in Pastor Barth's term as the pastor that brought the church to this location and that led the church in building the new sanctuary, and then even in the interim, building a youth building, and in my early years, building the garage. Calvary has fantastic facilities, and we were blessed. And one of the highlights of our time here was that season when we felt led by the Lord to free our future from our ongoing mortgage obligation. We've been in the constant pursuit of effective ways to communicate the gospel to our culture. And so early on in my time here, I think in the first year, we decided that it was time to recognize that sports was a natural way to connect with families and children in our culture. And so we instituted our very first sports camp in, I think, 1997. The future of this church and the future of the church at large, but this church in particular, is firmly in the hands of the Lord Jesus. He's the one who said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it."
When Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail, he meant that Satan's gates were there for his protection because he's on the defense. He's not on the offense. And we, the church, are on the offense. And I would love to see us take that offensive role even more in coming against the powers of the enemy that would tend to even bind not only our people, but the people who are in the world. And our desire to be fishers of men involves really coming against the elements that are of the enemy out there and coming against them and winning, because it is Jesus Christ working through us. He is the one building this church, and he will continue to do it, and we thank him for it.
We look forward to the future. It isn't all just behind us. There's hope for the future. We got still got a big community around us here, and people that need the Lord, and people to reach. And we look forward to what God has got in store. It's going to be a great time.
Jesus said, "I will build my church," in Matthew 16:18. And in the meantime, I will use you by giving you the gifts that I need to complete this building. But remember that this is my church I'm building, not yours.
The Lord's church is the one institution that's not going to fail. It's going to succeed. And as we yield ourselves to Him, we'll see Him do much more than what we've seen in the past. We're talking about some things that we have seen. I think the future could be even way better than that.
Yes.
I feel it for Calvary Assembly of God. I think God has brought you this far for a purpose. And God has a purpose in all things, and they're working together for good. And I see a horizon filled with the blessings of God for Calvary Assembly of God.